Welcome to Driving the Line, the pursuit of safety, where we talk about the real issues out on the road, focus on safe driving, and learn industry best practices from your hosts Kenny Ray, Mike Bohan, and Jim Seibert, in the hopes that by driving the line, we get more drivers home safe and sound. This podcast was made possible by Marsh McLennan Agency.
Welcome back, everybody, to Driving the Line. Jim, Kenny, Barry, and Mike in the studio with you here today. And it is a good day. Happy Monday, guys. Hope you had a good weekend. Did anybody do anything interesting?
Stay out of the heat in Texas.
I hear you, brother.
We went fishing.
Well, that's a good weekend. Did you catch anything?
We did. My son Justice outfished me. He caught 5 largemouth and I caught 3, and all of his were bigger than mine. So I'm
fantastic.
It was not a good showing for me.
the young pup schooled dad. I love it. Well, I tell you what, guys, I had a good weekend. Had dinner with some family Friday night that I don't get to see very often, some of my extended family, and then we drove up to Nebraska and spent a couple days with my wife's family. So always good to see family, and it's always good to see you guys on here. It's good to see your faces. I always enjoy getting together with you guys. So, well, we've got a special topic for you guys as our listeners today, and I really don't say that lightly, because we're going to be talking about the professional truck driver. And we've had professional truck drivers in this country for well over 100 years, and there's currently between 3 and 4 million of them out there on the roadways today. And in 1988, the American Trucking Association launched the National Truck Driver Appreciation Week program. And they did this to recognize the hard work and the dedication of the men and women who keep this country moving on a daily basis. And I mean that. There is really nothing that we touch on a daily basis that didn't come to us by a truck driver. I mean, think about it. Everything we touch has been on a truck at some point. Everything we eat, what we wear, the house we live in, the cars we drive, all of that happens because a truck driver went to work. So it really does deserve some attention. It deserves some appreciation. So from all of us at Driving the Line, right up front, before we really even get into this podcast, we want to say thank you to our truck drivers. Amen. You guys keep this country moving, and we appreciate you so much. And this year, Truck Driver Appreciation Week falls on September 15th through the 21st. And while it's a nationally recognized event, we want to make sure that that focus really is brought down to a personal level. We can't really just say the words, thank you. There's got to be some meaning behind what we're saying. So that's where I kind of want to put Barry on the spot here, because he has had a lot of experience in his career in a couple different ways that I think is going to shed some light on what the meaning of this week really is. Because Barry, you've not only been a professional truck driver, but you've also been a safety professional with the trucking company. So you've seen both sides of this. And I would really like to get your input on what you feel like this week really means and how we make a difference for these truck drivers who are out there dedicating their lives to keeping this country moving, and how we can really express our gratitude in a meaningful way.
Well, Mike, I just want to start by, just saying what you said. This week to me is one of the most important weeks in our industry, because it's very easy for our professional drivers, week over week, thinking back to my driving career, that you get so into your weekly routines, things of that nature, and you start to feel like you may not feel that appreciated by those around you. You've got hot-headed drivers out there that you're dealing with sometimes. Some people, may think you're not acting in a professional manner, but, this week to me just kind of signifies and brings it all back to the basics of exactly what you said. These men and women are out there every day, literally risking their lives to make sure that our country and our economy keeps moving. And, a lot of my driving career was I hauled fuel for a while at night, and that can be a lonely feeling at times. And you're not seeing anyone. You don't see anybody at the terminal, really. You're there, you do your pre-trip, you get out on the road, you do your shift, and then you get back, and there's still nobody there. You may see your slip seat driver, hopefully, so you can say hey to him, tell you if there was anything that you saw in your post trip. But like I said, it can feel isolating at times. So this is a really good opportunity for the industry to, I hate to use the word slow down a little bit, but slow down and really remember those men and women who are out there, and do little things that show them how appreciative we are, and to their families, and how appreciative we are of the sacrifices that they make, week over week, month over month. It's fun because, thinking of from the operational perspective, we would always try to do like a cookout, do little giveaways through the week, just whatever we could, just to say thank you. And I challenge any company out there, if you guys need any advice on little trinkets, cookout idea, whatever it is, get your drivers together, give them a big old hug, and just say thank you for what you do.
And I think that as you're going down through there and you're talking about what your role was like as a driver, and you're being out on the road, and it can be a solitary role, having that face to face, having that contact with the drivers where you're actually routing them through, you're cooking them a meal, you're actually physically shaking their hand and saying thank you. To me, I don't know. To me, that means the world to me. When somebody says, you can do all kinds of things to show your appreciation to somebody, but if you grab somebody's hand and shake it, look them in the eye and say thank you, to me personally, that means something. That to me, that means the world to me. And I guys, I don't know everything, but one of the things that I do when I'm talking to drivers, not just during Truck Driver Appreciation Week, but anytime I'm around a group of drivers, I always end with telling them, I understand you have a hard job. What you do is not easy, and I appreciate what you do. And I do it with all sincerity. I'm not just blowing smoke. I truly mean it, because these folks have a tough job, and I think it's important that they hear people, not just the folks that they work for, but the people that might be connected to the industry, to just say, hey, thanks. I understand what you're going through and appreciate what you're doing. And I think you mentioned a few things there that companies can do to show appreciation. Kenny, I know you work with a ton of trucking companies as well, and you've had that role as well, being in the industry. What are some of the things that you think are important or meaningful to a driver, or maybe you've got some feedback from some drivers that said, yeah, that meant something to me when they did this for us?
Mike, a lot of the times I see very effective programs held during National Truck Driver Appreciation Week, but they're always a direct reflection of the culture or the personality of that company. I had the privilege not long ago to have both Jim and Barry come down to one of our clients here in Texas and do some OSHA training for them. And that particular motor carrier, and I won't mention them by name, but they're a very highly respected trucking company. They do something really neat during Truck Driver Appreciation Week. So many of their drivers are OTR. They're over the road. So they're not in and out every single day, but they normally get by the yard at least once a week. So during that week, that company replicates what they do on Monday every single day of the week. And they go all out. They cook steaks on the grill. They have soft drinks. They rent a snow cone and ice cream vendor to come down with a food truck and provide snow cones and ice cream. They have gift bags for every single one of their drivers. And this is a large motor carrier. They have hundreds of drivers. And they also, the drivers that live close enough to the yard, they allow them to bring their spouses and their kids. It's a family-friendly event. But if you go and visit them on Monday and you sit and say, wow, that's incredible. They do the same thing the next day, the next day, and the next day for those drivers that come in throughout the week. Now, is that expensive? Yes, it is. But the amount of money they spend on that is less than it costs them to onboard a new driver. So the fact that they can retain drivers by doing stuff like that, it's not only expressing appreciation of the drivers, it's also a very smart business move. And I know we have owners of trucking companies and we have safety directors that listen to our podcast, and you can both express genuine appreciation and gratitude to drivers, and at the same time, it being advantageous to your business model as well. So don't just look at this as, I'm throwing a bunch of money at 1 week. There's a return on that in terms of driver retention, driver's loyalty, if you will, to a motor carrier. And Mike, another thing, and you and I have talked about this before, Again, because we have owners and safety directors that listen to our program, I want us to think of innovative ways to be advocates for our industry. A lot of times we're kind of closed loop. We kind of have an internal focus only on our industry. And you mentioned how important trucking is to our nation as a whole. And all four of us on here, all four of us that speak on the podcast, we live in rural parts of our state. I'm in rural part of Texas. Barry and Jim are in rural parts of Oklahoma, and you're in a very rural part of Missouri. And do you know that over 80% of communities, 80% of all the towns in our entire country are served solely by the trucking industry? That means they don't have a rail spur. They don't have a commercial airport. They don't have a marine terminal where boats are bringing stuff in. And so, 80% of the communities in our nation, 100% of what gets delivered to their towns, to their stores, their gas stations, their kids' schools, all of that comes by trucks. And we need to start, in my opinion, we need to start educating the American public on how important the trucking industry really, really is. And one thing I encourage guys to do, guys and gals, that are in positions where they're afforded opportunity to speak in some sort of public forum, whether that's at a conference, it's at a business meeting, you get invited to do a program for a local civic organization. We're talking about like the Lions Club, the JCs, the Kiwanis. Anytime somebody asks me to come and speak to any group, I always find a way to weave the trucking story into that presentation. A lot of times I'll wear, y'all seen those little buttons that the American Trucking Association puts out, says, I heart trucks.
Yeah.
I wear one of those everywhere I go, and people will come up to me and say, what does that mean, you I heart trucks? Well, they just opened the door. I'm fixing to tell them the story now about the American trucking industry. And one other thing, and I'm certainly not trying to push religion, but I want to share with y'all the way we can be unorthodox in our thinking. Several years ago, I went to the pastor at my church and I said, hey, in a couple of weeks, we're having Truck Driver Appreciation Week across the nation. And we have some men and women in our church that are involved in the trucking industry. Our pastor put that in the bulletin of for our morning worship, and he mentioned it in the service. Wow, so there's cool. A way even that, you would sit and say, well, how would a church ever get involved? Well, just the pastor mentioning, hey, we have some truck drivers in our congregation and we're proud of y'all and we appreciate what y'all do for our country. It was as simple as that.
Sure.
And those drivers came up to me later and said, that made me feel so good for him to say that. So my point is, I'm just simply saying, be creative in ways that you find to advocate for our industry, to advocate for drivers. One other thing, and Mike and I'll yield back to you. All of us are involved in our safety councils, whether it's state or local level. And one thing, our Dallas Fort Worth Safety Council, which is a subordinate organization of our Texas Trucking Association. One thing our DFW Safety Council does, we will pick one of the local truck stops in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and we probably have 10 or 12 pretty good size within a 30 or 40 mile radius of Dallas and Fort Worth. And we will contact the manager of that truck stop prior to and say, hey, we would like to come out during Truck Driver Appreciation Week, set up a table, and we would like to give away gift bags and just, have our appreciation for drivers. We've never been told no. And we go out there and we set up a table and we don't interfere with the business of the truck stop, but we will have collected gifts and things the week before. And then, we share those with drivers. Just one other way, particularly when you're at a truck stop. And here I am in Texas. You may have a driver from Pennsylvania or a driver from California come in there. He doesn't know a soul. He just stopped to get fuel, get a bite to eat, and he walks in. Somebody hands him a grab bag and says, thank you for what you're doing, gives him a ball cap to wear, and you just made their day, And again, it's just a simple way of saying exactly what you said, Mike. Thank you for what you do.
Absolutely. We do that, something very similar here in Missouri with our Council of Safety Supervisors, but we coordinate with Highway Patrol, and we'll actually go to a scale house.
You bet.
And,
you bet.
We set up a tent, have our grab bag full of goodies, and they'll flip the light on and pull trucks through, and they're thinking they're fixing to come in and get an inspection, and they've got a group of folks standing there, hand them a bag, say, "Hey, thanks for what you do. Be safe out there on the road." And they kind of look at you like, "Oh, well, thanks.
Yeah.
I thought I was fixing to get an inspection in there, and that just got a bag full of goodies," and off they go, and you just see a smile on their face. So that's a cool thing that our associations are doing, and I think that's part of that being creative that you were talking about, and whether it's you're a part of an association or whether it's your company, whatever, I think we have to be creative in supporting this industry, as Kenny said, and really supporting the drivers that are out there. And Jim, I want to pull you in this. I know you're a thoughtful and a creative guy. You're much more creative than I am, for sure, which doesn't take much, I know, and it doesn't necessarily even, I know you've got clients that you work with at our office that have truck drivers, but just in general, when we're talking about showing someone appreciation, what are things that you think of, whether it's a client or just, a friend or whatever, that you say, this is how I'm going to show appreciation to somebody, or in a creative way you think a company could do that, could show appreciation to their drivers that may be working for them?
There's nothing without trucking. And I try to share that as I'm out. So I go deep into the country. All right. My clients are the ag world, and I'm witnessing and watching an evolution within the ag industry. And for some, it's going to seem, oh, that's been around for a long time. But, where I'm from in Nebraska, we drove straight trucks forever. Once the farmers started getting semi trucks, you're like, oh, now everybody's getting rich. It was kind of uncommon, and now it's uncommon to ever see a straight truck. And grain is getting hauled so much farther than it ever has before. It's going hundreds of miles away just for a price, and getting those good margins. So when I'm in the countryside, I love walking into the local cooperatives, the local gas stations, and I'm running into truckers all over the place. And these are long haul, over the road truckers that are hauling grain. It may not be something for a gas station somewhere in inner city to drop off clothes at that's not what's happening. But for me, making an impact, thanking as many people as I can, or affecting the industry, it happens on the bulletin board of the small gas station. It happens on the bulletin board in the cooperative. Every time I'm over the road, I like seeing the cork boards on the wall with the posters celebrating. Just being sure that when I run into the guy that walks in with the headset on, thank him for what he's doing. The smallest of things, it seems like, oh, I'm not doing enough. Just even a thank you makes a big impact. And having, like Kenny said, having those goodie bags and making those setups, really focusing and taking that time to do it, it's appreciated.
When we talk about being creative and thinking outside the box, I think there's a lot of ways we can do that, but sometimes it truly is just as simple as, like I said earlier in the podcast, just grabbing somebody's hand, shaking it, looking them in the eye and say, thank you. I know you've got a hard job, and we sure do appreciate what you do. And that comes with, I think, the education part of it, which I love that Kenny shared that, the educating the public about this industry. I think that's an important part of this conversation, because, if somebody's going to truly appreciate these truck drivers that are running up and down the road and delivering goods and keeping us going, for somebody to really thank them, they got to understand what they're doing. So I think that education part of it is key, Kenny. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I think this is something that we could all agree on. I know this. I mentioned this before. September 15th to 21st. That's for this year. That's Truck Driver Appreciation Week. But this is a topic or a conversation that could easily be expanded beyond this week when we're talking about just appreciation for professional truck drivers. And I hope everybody that's listening, whether you're a safety director, an owner, or anybody else that might be listening to this, that you don't just think about it for 1 week, that this is something that it's just a mindset that you get, where we're very appreciative of our professional truck drivers and the men and women who are just dedicating their lives to that profession and moving freight up and down the road. So think about that as you go through your week, but definitely that week, break out the grill, cook them up some food, get creative on some gift ideas, some ways that you can show your appreciation. But in the end, I think a heartfelt, sincere thank you is going to go a long way for you. So, guys, unless you've got something else you want to share, I think we're about at time for this episode. This is a great topic. Again, to all of our drivers that are listening to us, I know there's some of you out there listening to the podcast. Again, thank you for the job you do. It makes us feel good when we see professional truck drivers operating safely out there up and down the road. So we certainly thank you. Be safe out there. And for everybody listening, catch us right here next time on Driving the Line.
That's all the time we have for this episode of Driving the Line, the Pursuit of Safety. We hope you enjoyed our discussion and thank you for listening. You can rate, review, and subscribe to Driving the Line, the Pursuit of Safety on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other app you're using. You can also follow Marsh McLennan Agency on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Until next time, thanks again for listening. Drive safely, everyone.